Okay. So the Mishnah on Samach Hamon Beis towards the top of the page. Ish mitzuva piri berivya avalo isha. That a man is obligated in pruvavu and not a woman. Rashi says, the Gemara explains basically zeros akasu. I suggested something I think last time or the time before. You can't obligate a woman in pruvavu because it's sakanas nefashos, but the Gemara doesn't take up that topic here. But Yochanan Broka says Al Shneimu Omer Vayivarcho Samel Kim Vayomer Lahem Pruvavu. No, Rabbi Yochanan Broka says Kadosh Baruch Hu commanded both of them, pasuk and Bereshis, to be fruitful and multiply. So you have this machlokas in the Mishnah. Let's see how the Gemara takes it out. Unanimely, where do we know that it's only where do I know that the obligation of pruvavu was only on men? So Amar Rabbi Loi, Mishum Rabbi Lazar, Rabbi Shimon, Amar Krab, but it's on the pasuk in Bereshis, Umilu es haaretz v'kivshua. And the word kivshua is singular, right? Because ish darka lichvosh, vein isha darka lichvosh. Right? So it's interesting. They want to say that pruvavu is dependent on who's obligated in kivshua, and kivshua is only obligated on a man. I mean, that same pasuk says pruvavu, right? Wait, I can't hear you. Yes, I can hear you.
Sorry. Umilu sa'aretz is only on a woman. A man can't do that.
Right. Yeah.
And that comes first.
Yeah. I have the same questions. Yeah. Rashi Tosos don't take it up. I'm sure others do. But yeah, good question. So Adarabba, they play around with the word kivshua. They don't say pruvavu or milu, right? Adarabba, kivshua tarti mashma. The word kivshua is two people should be kovesh it. So it's not even the word kivshua doesn't imply just a man. In the grammar, in the idea, I think the Gemara is talking about the idea of conquering is more associated with men. But anyway, Amar Nachman Bar Yitzchak, v'chav shaksiv, right? It's a kriuksiv. Kivshua, that's how it's pronounced, but it's written kivsha, right? And that's in the singular. So that's the angle. Where do we know it? Ani El Shaddai Preorvei. Okay, there already it says Preorvei. Right, Lo Kamar Preorvu. Right, so that's where we know that. That's where we know that it's only on a man, not on a woman. Okay. Few other Rabbi Loi ideas. Vam Rabbi Loi, Mishum Rabbi Lazar, Rabbi Shimon. That's just because we mentioned him already. Kishem Shemitzah. These are famous Pitkamim. Kishem Shemitzah al Adam Lomar Davar Nishma. Kach Mitzvah al Adam Lomar Shalom Lomar Davar Shein Nishma. It's like it's a mitzvah to say something that people will listen to, in the realm of Musar or Tochacha, or whatever the case may be. So too, right? It's a mitzvah not to say something that won't be listened to, right? Rabbi Abba Amar Chova. Not only is it a good idea, is it a mitzvah not to say things, but you're obligated not to. Shnemar al tochach leitz penis necha hochach lachacha me'avecha. Do not rebuke some leitz, right? A clown, because he'll hate you. Rebuke a chacham me'avcha, and he'll love you. Okay. Vam Rabbi Mishum Rabbi Lazar Bar Shimon. Rabbi Lazar said in the name of Rabbi Lazar Bar Shimon. Mutar lo lado l'shanos b'dvar shalom. It's also famous tomorrow. It's permissible for a person to change the truth, right? To not be precise when it comes to the truth, to change the details, change the facts in the pursuit of peace. Shnamar, right? Pasuk by Yosef, right? In Vayigash. Kos Omru Yosef Ana Sana, right? Avicha Tzivcha, sorry. Shnamar Avicha Tzivcha, Komar Yosef Ana Sana, right? Brothers tell Yosef that Yaakov told us to tell you to forgive them. We never had that conversation, right? So it's not only a mutter l'shana. I mean, that's an outright lie, right? But that it's framed as mutter l'shanos. Nasan Omar mitzvah. Not only is it permissible, but it's not only is it permissible, but it is a mitzvah to do so. This is a different pasuk later on in Tanakh. Shnamar v'yomer Shmuel eich elech v'shama shal varguni. And when it came time for David HaMelech to be to appoint David, when it came time to appoint David HaMelech, Shmuel says, "Ask Hashem, how can I go out? Shaul's going to kill me." So he said, "Go and pretend you're offering a carbon, right?" So, and then you can say you're offering a carbon, right? So here it's like God commanded Shmuel to change the truth, right? To deviate from the truth somehow. Right? Dvei Shmuel Tana. Right? Dvei Shmuel Tana. Gadol Shalom. Ava Kodesh Baruch Hu Shinabo. Right? Greatest peace, because even God deviates. Right? He even changes the words a little bit, the facts, when it comes to preserving peace. To make Arksiv Adoni Zaken. Right? When Sarah first heard she was going to have a kid, she said, "My husband's old." So Ksiv Ani Zakanti. When reporting it back to Avram, it says that I'm old. Sarah said, Hashem says Sarah left because she said that I'm old, but really she said also that my husband's old. Hashem leaves that out, right? Hashem leaves that out in the interest of peace. Okay, back to Rabbi Yochanan ben Broka Omer. Rabbi Yochanan ben Broka says, right, we said in the Mishnah that both men and women are obligated in Pru'Urvu. Right? First wide line. Samachem Beis. Hey, tomorrow, Rabbi Yochanan and Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi. There's a machlokas Rabbi Yochanan and Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi. Chad Omar halachik Rabbi Yochanan ben Broka. Chad Omar halachik Rabbi Yochanan ben Broka. Right? So we know that there's a machlokas Rabbi Yochanan, different Rabbi Yochanan and Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi as to whether the halacha is like Rabbi Yochanan ben Broka or not. We're not sure which one said which. So to start Rabbi Yochanan, who damar ein halacha, let's say that Rabbi Yochanan is the one who holds that the halacha is not like Rabbi Yochanan ben Broka, that they're both not, that men and women are both not are not both obligated. Yasif Rabbi Bo, once Rabbi Bo was sitting, the Kamar Mishmeid Rabbi Yochanan halacha, and was saying in the name of Rabbi Yochanan that the halacha follows Rabbi Yochanan ben Broka, right? So this is, you got to follow the Masorah here, right? You had Rabbi Vavut saying that Rabbi Yochanan held like Rabbi Yochanan ben Broka. But Drinu, Rabbi Ami, Rabbi Asi, La Payu. And Rabbi Ami and Rabbi Asi, upon hearing this from, again, Rabbi Vahu, right, turned their face away. And the idea, it was their silent protest, Rashi says. V'omer Rabbi Yochanan me'olam, cholku lo kavod, v'ratzal achisha, right? They not a silent protest, but it was their way of not having to say anything. They turned away so that they wouldn't have to contradict what Rabbi Vahu said. Right? So you follow, Rabbi Vahu said that Rabbi Yochanan holds like Rabbi Yochanan ben Broka, and Rabbi Ami and Rabbi Asi turned away their faces to indicate that he got it wrong, that Rabbi Yochanan does not hold like Rabbi Yochanan ben Broka. Vigadamri, others say Rabbi Chia bar Abba Amar. Others say that the story goes that Rabbi Chia bar Abba was the one who said that Rabbi Yochanan said the halacha was like Rabbi Yochanan ben Broka. Adrin Rabbi Ami Rabbi Asi Lapayu, right? It was someone else who was talking, and Rabbi Ami and Rabbi Asi turned away. Then that would have been in that scenario. That was like that was the silent protest one. And one was so that they wouldn't have to say anything, and the other out of respect, deference. The other one was a silent protest. Okay, but either way, we're saying that Rabbi Yochanan does not hold like Rabbi Yochanan ben Broka. Amar Papa, Bishlamant Amar Rabbi Amra. Right? The story makes sense if you said that Rabbi Vahu, right, was the one who was talking. That's the first version, and they turned away their face, right? And why did Rav Ami and Rav Asi turn away? Mishum kavod beikesar lo amru lo midi. On account of the honor of Beikesar, he was a ben bias. Ravo was a member of the household, right? And therefore they didn't want to mess. They didn't want to mess. They didn't want to mess with Ravo. So that's why they didn't say anything. If Rabbi Chia was the one who said it, the wrong halacha that Rabbi Yochanan held like Rabbi Yochanan Broka. So why wouldn't they say anything? Why didn't they say anything? That's the question. So Rabbi doesn't like that version. So my Haviolah, right? Machlokes, Rabbi Yochanan, and the other guy, right? Whether you hold like Rabbi Yochanan and Broka, sof kol sof, what do we hold, right? My Haviolah. So Tashma, about halfway through the wide lines at the bottom. Dam Rabbi Acha Bar Chanina Amar Rabbi Avo Amar Basi Udavi Kamed Rabbi Yochanan Bichnishta de Kesari. There's a story that helps us understand what the halacha might be, that Rabbi Yochanan was once approached in the shul in Kesari. Vamar Yot, what was the story? Havi Uvda, right? Rashi says that she wanted to get divorced because because there were no children. So she was the one, Rashi says, the wife was the one pushing, demanding a divorce because she didn't have children, right? And what did Rabbi Yochanan say? He said it's legitimate, and therefore he must divorce her, and he must pay her the ksuba. If you would say that women are not obligated in the midst of pruruvu, ksuva ma'avita, why would he be forced to divorce her with a ksuba? In other words, if she wants to get divorced, fine. Force the husband to divorce her, but the only reason there would be a ksuba is if it was a legitimate reason. If it wasn't a legitimate reason, there could be forcing him to divorce her, but without a ksuba. So the fact that there's a ksuba indicates that her claim is legitimate and she is somehow obligated in the mitzvah of pruruvu. So the Gemara says not necessarily. Dilma beva machmas taina, right? No, not because she's obligated in pruruvu, but because it's a legitimate taina. There's a legitimate taina of not having children above and beyond the technical mitzvah of pruruvu. In what way? Once a woman came before Rabami and Amrulay, Havlik Suba. She said to Rabami, I want my ksuba, I want to get divorced, and I want my ksuba also. Amrullah Zil. Right? But lo mifakta. Right? So Rabami at first said, fine, divorce, but I can't demand that he give you your ksuba because you're not obligated to mitzvah pruruvu. So relay, she said back to him, misivu dila ma'tihavela dahach itza. Right? What will happen to this woman when I get old? Right? In other words, she doesn't have a mitzvah to have children, but who's going to take care of her when she gets older? So Amar Kiha Vada Kafina. So Ravami realized you're right. Even if there's no technical mitzvah for a woman to have children, it's in the woman's benefit to have children. It's the way of the world when she gets older to have somebody to have a support system, and as such, that is grounds for a divorce with the ksuba.
Would there be any merit to the idea that in those times it would have been much more difficult to know who the problem was with, and therefore maybe you can't act? I mean, it could be the woman. She's going to get married again, and then they'll see if it was the man or the woman.
Right. So we saw that before, right? 2 women, 3 women. How many times can a woman get married before we worry about her being, right? That was chazaka and all that stuff, katlanis. I think the point here is that the question is, you're right. We don't know whose fault it is. It's just a reality. So, right. So after 10 years, we say that the husband should divorce his wife if he's not having children. Let's say he had multiple wives, then he doesn't have to divorce her necessarily.
Right.
But she wants to get divorced. She's not necessarily saying it's him or her. maybe she doesn't know, but together it's not working out. So I think it doesn't. You're right. We can't necessarily know who it is. I mean, unless he has other wives. But nonetheless, the question is, who can make the legitimate claim? I want to get divorced because we don't have children.
Right.
Definitely the man, and maybe even the woman, but maybe not for the same reason.
Right.
One for mitzvah reasons, one for practical reasons.
Right. I mean, I guess even with doctors, and even if you do know, you never know. It's really all up to
That's also true, right? It's kind of
you really never know. Things can just change. So
right, yeah, right. That's true. Hahi da'ata da'asya lekame Rav Nachman. Woman came before Rav Nachman. Amrullah, same thing, right? She wanted a divorce, right? Right? Amrullah lo mi fakta. You're not obligated to prove revu. Amrullah lo baya hachitza chutra liyada. Won't this woman need a stick for her hand, like a cane, someone to support her when she gets older? Marla kavura, shovel for burial, right? Children are practically useful, if for nothing else, than in old age, right? To take care of them after death, later on in life. So So you're right. Technical mitzvah, perhaps there isn't, but practical reason, yes, definitely. Yehuda story time. Finish up the parak and then start the next one. Yehuda and Chizkiah Tomim Hayu. Yehuda and Chizkiah were twins. Okay. Havilei Tsar Leda. I'm sorry. Echad Nigmar Tzarasel of Tisha. Echad Nigmar Tzarasel Tchilas Shiva. One was fully formed after 9 months, and one after 7 months. Not sure. You have to ask a neonatologist exactly how that works. But and Yehudis Devisu, right? Rabbi Chia, Yehudis was Rabbi Chia's wife. Havlei Tsar Leda. She had a lot of pain as a result of this unique situation where the children, where the babies were not of the same developmental stage in birth, and that led to pain when she was having them. Shanai Mina. So she and therefore anyway, Shanai Mana. She changed her clothes. So Asil Kamed Rav Chia and came before Rav Chia, right? So this was like a Tamar thing, right? She dressed up and in a way that her husband didn't recognize her. Amra, she asked him, Itza mivhakta piravu. Yeah, she asked Rav Chia, is a woman obligated to piravu? So no. He answered without realizing that was his wife, and he told her no. So Azla Ishtasa Sama Dakarta, right? She went and drank the potion of infertility, right? So she was no longer able to have children. Right, the Soviet Mill. So later on, it became clear that the woman who asked her was really his wife. So Merloi told her, "Iku yilatali chada krasach risa." Right, I wish you had right. I wish that you would have had another stomach full of babies. He didn't say one more baby, right? But Rashi says, who said that, right? I wish you wouldn't have drunk so that you would have more children. And he uses that language of a stomach full of children because the Damar Yehuda v'Chizkiah Achi and Pazi v'Tavi Achvasa, top of the next daf. Right? So Yehuda and Chizkiah were twin brothers. They were the sons of Reb Chia. And Pazi and Tavi were sisters, twin sisters, the daughters of Reb Chia and Yehuda. So, right, he had two sets of twins. And she said, 2 sets of twins, I'm out. Right? If I'm not obligated, I'm not having any more kids. And she dressed and the Kachaya. And then Reb Chia was upset. He said, I could have had another set of twins. Okay. Samach Vav Aleph and end of the parak. Is it true that a woman is not obligated in Pruvu? Top line. The famous case of a woman who's half and half, right? Not fully free, not fully slave. Kaf was Rab of Asabaskoren. They forced the masters to completely free her so that she would be free. And the Havamina is that she was forced to be freed so that she would be fully obligated in the mitzvah of Pruvu. But no, that's not really it. No, the problem was she was not protected in any way. She wasn't protected as a slave woman. She wasn't protected as a free woman, and that led her to be treated in a degrading fashion, right? Where people would take advantage of her in between status that was not protected on either side, and therefore there's no proof from that a woman there's no proof that a woman's obligated in Pruvu. I think by halacha we generally assume a woman is not technically obligated. Yeah.
Going back to the other story for a second. First of all, it's interesting that her name was Yehuda since she named one of her sons Yehuda.
Yeah.
Interesting. And then saying if she was first, especially if she already had two boys and two girls, then she would have already been Yotze the mitzvah, regardless of the answer.
Right, that's good.
That she got.
Let's see if there's anything. No one mentions anything about that either.
If you would say she just had two boys, and I think according to Beis Shammai, she wasn't.
Right. No, two is everyone's.
This is it's no gay b'davar. I have to have a conversation with more now. We have 2 and 2. If that's not enough.
Right. What's this? Art scroll quotes that she was asking about the mitzvah that we talked about elsewhere about having children, Sheves or whatever. No, what does he quote? Different pasuk. Al Tanakh, right? The continuing mitzvah, not just the essential mitzvah, but the ongoing mitzvah of having additional children, even after.
So women would not be. Oh, so maybe maybe women are obligated in Peru, but not obligated in additional.
Right. We leave it ambiguous, right? I mean, other than the fact that the Tanakama is the one who holds. Right, generally, we assume like the Tanakama, right? So if we'd have to go back and see the Ein Mishpat and see how it's poskin. We could definitely do that, right? But I would assume the implication of the Gemara is that, right, that we don't hold like Rabbi, that we hold like the Tanakama, right? If you go back to Salachem Beis and you look at the Ein Mishpat, quotes the Rambam and Ishus, Parak Tesvav, Halacha Yud Gimel. So we can look it up. Halacha Beis, sorry. Tesvav and Ishus. Right, so over there we'll have to see, but it seems like the little note telling us the halacha is on that a man's obligated, not a woman. Now that all plays out, but that seems to be the upshot.
Right. Okay.
Okay. Let's do some. Let's start the next parak. It's a very short parak. It'll take us probably 2 lessons to finish it. Different topic, a little bit more complicated. Not quite Yevamos-y, but related to Kohanim and who they're allowed to feed truma to. Right, under what the relationship has to be, whether the marriage has to be legitimate, whether the property, the slaves has to be his. What type of ownership it has to be in order to feed your slaves truma, etc. And so an almana Kohen Gadol, right? A Kohen Gadol is not allowed to marry an almana, but if he does, right, or Gerusha Chalitza Kohen Hedjot, similarly, a woman who's divorced or undergone Chalitza that marries a Kohen, there too it's not allowed. Right? If she brings Avdei Milug and Avdei Tzom Barzel, right? The difference between the two, right? Avdei Milug Tzon Barzel are remain completely hers, right? Right. Right. Tzon Barzel, the value is set. Nichse Milug go up and down in value. Tzon Barzel, whatever she brings in, that value is what remains, and everything above that value belongs to the husband. Right. That's the difference between Nichse Milug and Nichse Tzon Barzel. Let's read Rashi because this will be something that we need back and forth. Avdi Milog, Masha Isha Machneses Labala, right? A woman brings with her certain assets into the marriage. Shamalo Lakablam Alav Bachrayas. They evaluate them because he accepts upon them the responsibility, right, of the value. Subasa. Kamo Shekosvin Udana Dunya Danasle, right? The Nadunya that you, like in the ksuba that we say, the Nadunya that you bring from your father's house or from wherever you're coming from, right? That's evaluated at a set price, and that price at the time of that value at the time of the wedding is the value that he would be obligated to if the marriage dissolves. Mosif Kenegdan Vikosef Sachakol Kibo Love Ploni Kafakaf Buksulasa Korin Son Barza. Right? That's a set price. Yesh Shemachnesas Mamo and Harbe Venu Koseves Kula Biksubasa. Right, there's sometimes a woman brings in more assets than are listed in the ksuba. Right, and those are no longer those aren't assets that she brings into the marriage. Those are assets that she keeps in her separate checking account. Right, those are separate. That's a separate calculation. That's called nechse milug. V'abal ochel peros v'akeren shala kayin. Right, when it comes to nechse milug, the husband eats the profits, right? But she keeps the principal. The mesula, right? If they're avadim or if they're cattle, right? She loses out on they belong to her. If they die, she loses out. Oh, paksula. If they devaluate, right, lose value, then that's her loss. Lashon Tzon Barzel Karen Kayen. Like the idea of iron sewn is this idea that the principle remains. Shem Poches and Ifsad. Right? No matter what, the husband's on the hook for the value of these property, even if it gets lost or even if it devalues. Shafilu Mesu Kula and Achrayus and Alav. Lashalim La Kishimus Kishayamus or Yigarshan. Right? If she brings in a certain nedunya, and that nedunya gets lost or dies or devaluates, all of that responsibility of that loss of value is on the husband. But as opposed to tzon nechse milug, where the husband benefits from any type of increase in value or any types of benefit, right? Like the milk and the wool of an animal, right? That would all belong to the husband, but the actual animals or slaves themselves would remain in the possession of the woman. So what do we say? She brings into the marriage nichse milug, right, where she and avdi log and avdi tzon barzel. Avdi milug lo yochel b'tshuma, right? So the avdi milug, which remain hers, right? They're really hers. Lo yochel b'tshuma. They can't eat truma because they don't belong to a kohen. Avdi tzon barzel, right? The nedunya, avdi tzon barzel that belong to the kohen, really. He's completely obligated in the achrayas of these items, right? Yochlu, they can eat truma. Ve'elu hein avdi milug. These are the rules about avdi milug slaves. Imesu, right? If they die, mesula, right? They belong to her. That makes sense, right? They can't eat truma because they don't belong to the kohen. If they die, the loss is on the wife because they belong to her. Mosiru, if they increase in value, hosirullah, that belongs to her. Afal chayav b'mezon. Even though the husband is responsible to pay for food, and therefore there's usually a a trade-off, right? He plays Mazonos and he gets, what is the word? What's it called? Her yad, right? Her earnings, right? He has access to her earnings because he is guaranteeing that she has Mazonos, right? So that's normally the case, but when it comes to the value increase of this say milug, they belong to her, right? These are this is the deal. These are the laws concerning avdei tzom barzel. Imesu, if the slaves die, mesu lo, their death is the Kohen's loss or the husband's loss. Mosiru, if they increase in value, osiru lo, that's for him. He's obligated in their he's obligated in whatever happens to them. Right, so they can eat truma, and he's obligated in whatever happens to them, and the loss is his, and the gain is his. Therefore, they're basically his property for the duration of the marriage, and for the duration of the marriage, they can eat truma. That's what, and therefore, it can get a little confusing, right? Because these same avadim, son barzel, while she's married to a Kohen, can eat truma. Let's say the Kohen dies or they get divorced. Right? These same avadim have to get out of the habit of eating truma, and that's going to come up later. You'll have avadim that at one point can eat truma, and then at a later point cannot eat truma. I mean, I think
well,
we
so
need
does
that anyway.
she, right?
She as well, correct?
So they follow her. It's not that
Right, they follow her, correct? They follow her, but it's somewhat what the Gemara seems to imply later on is it's somewhat more unique. Obviously, a woman who divorces is no longer eligible for the benefits. When it comes to slaves, this is seen as a little bit of a more bigger chiddush, that you have slaves that at one point were that could eat truma and then later on couldn't. But you're right; it's not really different.
What about for not counting the woman at all? The slaves of the Kohen after he dies, can they eat truma from a different Kohen?
Presumably, they were inherited, right? Their property. So who do they belong to? There's no such thing as owned by the estate. It would be owned by the children or whatever. If the Kohen's children was a halal, then maybe not. Probably not.
Or if they go to a nephew or something, or
a
brother-in-law,
nephew, right? Or they get sold off, right?
So
right?
in that case, it would also be the same thing. They
Correct.
can no longer eat.
Correct. So the Gemara asks, right? Is it true that Avdei Milog are not allowed to eat truma? Am I? Why? Let's view this as that since the Kohen's wife can eat truma, so the Kohen's wife's nichse milog should also be able to eat truma. Tanya, how do we know that a woman, that a Kohen who gets married, and then she, or a Kohen buys avadim, that they can also eat truma, right? So he can enable those things that he creates a relationship with, whether it's avadim or his wife, that they also can eat truma based on a pasuk. Kohen kinyan nefesh kinyan katzbo hu yochal. Right? If a woman shall acquire a person through his money, they also may eat, right? So, and kinyan kaspo or ish kikach, right? It's not kinyan kesef or kiddushin kesef, right? We're comparing the two, even though they're not exactly the same. But in either case, so how do we know that a woman who buys slaves, and even avadim who buy slaves, right? In theory, you can have avadim who buy slaves. That they also can eat truma. Shnamar, the Kohen kikne nevesh kinyan kaspa hu yochal bo, right? Kinyano shekana kinyan ochel, right? It goes one more step. So not only the Kohen's wife, the Kohen's slaves, but the Kohen's wife's slaves, the Kohen's slaves, according to the Gzeres HaKasuv, should be allowed to. So why do we say that the woman's avdei milog are not allowed to eat truma? Right? That doesn't seem to fit with the pasuk. So the answer is kol ochel machel. Right? Kola ochel machil. Because we're talking about hold on. We're only talking about, wait, let's just see that again.
Is it that the extension of the rule poses a problem? So logically, it should be extended, but then that would propose a problem. So now we need to dispel that logic.
Right. No, it's telling us for some reason the woman is not allowed to eat truma at this moment. I'm not sure why. Kola ochel machel. Kol she'ein ochel eino machel. That's what it's saying. I don't know why. Oh. I think I'm. Oh, the problem is she's an almana kohen gadol. That's the problem. That's the problem, right? The Mishnah talks about an illegitimate marriage, right? So the problem is she can't eat truma. Yeah, that's what we're saying. She can't eat truma because it's an almana l'kohen gadol and a grusha chalutza l'kohen hedjot. It's illegitimate. She can't eat. But had it been a good marriage, we're saying that the nitzei milug you would have applied the pasuk. Yeah, okay, fine, right? If a Kohen marries someone that he's not allowed to marry, she can't eat truma. Interesting, even though kedushin is chal, right? Even though kedushin is chal, right? That's what we're saying. So then we ask, well, is that really true? That if you can't eat truma, then if she can't eat truma, then her slaves can't. What about a Kohen who's not been circumcised, or a Tamei Kohen? They can't eat truma right now, but others of their family, of their possessions, can't eat truma, right? So I kind of gave it away. I'm pretty sure the answer is going to be Hasam Pumayu Kaivlahu, right? It's literally their mouth is what the problem is, but I think that means there we go. Right? When it comes to
you said right now.
It's right now, right? It'll become tahor and it'll be fine. But the woman who married the alman who married the kohen gadol, the grusha chalutza married the kohen hedjot, it's a problem forever. Therefore, her nitzei milug can't. Bari mamzer shein ochel machil. What about a case of a mamzer who is right descended Bas Yisrael shenitzes the Kohen? Rashi says the older Bas Yisrael marries a Kohen. They have a daughter, and the Bas gets married to a mamzer and has a son, and she dies, and the son is alive, right? And if her mother was married to a Kohen, he could eat because of his grandmother. Problem is he's a mamzer. Right? What about that case? Right? He can't eat, but he can entitle others to eat, right? Right. So no, I'm sorry. So the wait, what's the deal? Bas Yisrael shenitzes is a Kohen, right? A Bas Yisrael marries a Kohen. They have a daughter. The Bas gets married to a mamzer as a child. Umesa. Ben Kayam. Bahari im imo eshes Kohen. Ocheles bishvilo truma lachar misas bala. Sheyesh lazera min hakohen kizdan b'sefer pirkin. Who eno yoch ochel dezaru. Udinami im kasher havish noam Yisrael kasher nami in ochel umachel yimimo. So the grandmother continues to see truma even though the mamzer can't. Right? So we want to say so too. The wife, the almana married to the Kohen Gadol, even if she can't, her nichsim miluk should be allowed to. So Amar Ravina kinyan ochel kamar. Right? It has to be someone who eats. Right? Kinyan ochel machim. Kinyan ochel. Right? If you can acquire. Kinyan ochel machil. Sheno ochel eno machil. Right? So we're saying right, we're specifically talking about when a Kohen acquires. Right? Anything that the Kohen acquires is entitled to eat truma. But anything that the Kohen acquires that does not eat truma, right, cannot entitle something else, right? So in other words,
the grandson doesn't eat because he was acquired by the grandmother. Sorry, not the grandson. The grandson doesn't let the grandmother eat because she was acquired by him. That's
correct.
Just the relationship. The
Correct.
Kohen lets.
Right. In other words, here the step one has to be in place, right? So if the almana, grusha, chalutza can't eat truma, then anything beyond that's not going to be able to work. That's what we're saying, right? It has to do with the order of operations and that the next step has been acquired, not just because of a relationship. Very good. All right, let's just finish up here and then we'll stop. Varava Amar, Rava says no. Midioraisa michalachol. Really, these slaves midioraisa should be allowed to eat truma. Rabbanu de Gazri, the rabbis were the ones who said that they can't. Kadesh Tumani Eini Ocheles. So that to incentivize the dissolving of that marriage, because the woman who's illegitimately married to the Kohen will say, I can't eat truma. Avdi and ochli. My slaves can't eat truma. Zoni yatzlo. Right. So what? I'm like a harlot in this household, right? I get there's nothing. There's no benefit. So and then they'll get divorced. And Hilgach asilafuke, right? And that's what we want. Rashi Omar Gzer Shematachal Achar Misa. No, the reason why she can't eat the Torah doesn't. The reason why the rabbis say that the slaves can't eat, because we're worried that there'll be a consistency after death, right? That's what I mentioned to you, and you mentioned there's lots of cases where there's no consistency, right? And that's what the Gemara asks. El me'ata bas Yisrael shenisas l'kohen lo talchil. A regular from a Jewish girl should not be allowed to eat truma, right? Because if her husband dies, she's no longer allowed to eat truma, right? So that's the question. Ravashi answers, Ba'almana Kohenes. It's specifically, the concern was really an almana who is a bas Kohen herself, right? And then she marries the Kohen Gadol. Right? The problem might be she'll be Mora Heter. I originally was eating truma because of my father's house, right? And then I got married. I eat truma from my husband's house, which is a mistake. And now that I'm a widow, from the Kohen Gadol, I go back and eat truma from my father's house. Right? She didn't realize that when she got married, she became a chalola, right? She just thought, truma, truma, truma. My father's house, my husband's house, my father's house. But really, when she was married in between, illegitimately, she wasn't allowed to eat truma. So hashta shavisi l'nafsha chalala. And right, so she wasn't allowed. So that's why the rabbis say don't allow any widow, any illegitimate marriage for the slaves to eat midrabanan. But that concerns only where the almana was a bas kohen and she was eating truma beforehand. Almana bas Yisrael ma'yiklam emar. What's the problem with a Jewish or non-kohen, a non-bas kohen? She never ate truma. She only ate truma when she was married to this man, and now in this case, she's not allowed to because it's an illegitimate marriage. But let her slaves eat. So we say no. Right? The answer is very simple. This idea of lo plug rabbanon, we don't differentiate. And so if he goes there on the nichse milug of the almana, even if she was a bas Yisrael, atu the case the concern that we raised by bas kohen. But the real answer is the first answer. I don't know what the real answer, but the basis of even the second answer is the first answer. Namely, we want them to get divorced. We want to disincentivize. We want to remove any potential benefit there is from this woman who's not supposed to be married to the Kohen to stay married. Therefore, it seems like the rabbis may have intervened and said, no, even the nichse milug can't eat truma. Okay, let's stop there. We're on the bottom of Samach Vav and Aleph. Second to last line, Itmar. Seems like a good place to stop for now.